So I was talking to this young lady yesterday, and she was expressing to me. She had sent me a voice note, expressing to me a challenge she was having um, with focus, and she said she finds herself to be very confused about what to commit herself to. So she sees that she's unable to stay with a certain interest for long, and she was pretty worried about this because she said, okay, I'm a 21-year-old, and I still don't know what my passion or what my interest is, because I see myself hopping from one thing to the other, or dilly-dallying within two things and not being able to commit. I just seem very confused and kind of scatterbrained. And when I spent time listening to her, I um, I told her, what I perceive is that you didn't get to play enough as a child. You didn't get to play. And she confirmed, she said, yeah, I didn't really get to play that much as a child. We weren't given that much of an opportunity to play. And, I met so many people like that. It's amazing how many people, how many adults I've met that always tell me play was a privilege they really didn't have as children. They didn't have the privilege of play. And I realized that this thing about play is very common, especially with the middle class or middle class income families, where the children don't really get to play that much. Um, and I've done quite a number of podcasts about playing, and I realized that people don't listen to those podcasts enough. You understand? There's a podcast I did a while back about the importance of playing with sand. The importance of playing with sand. And I would advise anybody to listen to that podcast. It doesn't sound like something you want to listen to because people are more focused on the podcast where I talk about how to make money, how to improve your business, you know. Um, but then, it drives home my point that people undermine the value of play. And I'm going to try to talk about play today, and hopefully, this message can be passed across to somebody listening here, because I realize that when you don't play in childhood, you become a very confused adult. Play prepares us for adulthood. Playing prepares us for adulthood. And it's important that we allow children play. There was a podcast I did also a while back that kind of talked about shielding children from poverty. Very important. I think we should listen to that podcast too, where I talked about children from low income families that are forced to forfeit play and are forced into early work to support the family. It's a terrible thing you can do to a child. You destroy them by not allowing them to play, because it's in play that we find ourselves. We find ourselves through the act of play more than we would find ourselves through the act of thinking. And I'll say this again. We as human beings get to discover more about ourselves through the results of playing than we do through the result of thinking. Play helps us to self-discover more than thinking and reflection does. Playing is very important. A lot of people that are confused, conflicted adults is because they never got to play. We look down at playing, especially in a society like Nigeria, where we become institutionalized early. We are kicked out into school very early, way too early. By 2, a child is taken away from home woken up early in the morning and put in a crèche where there's a regiment and there's order and there's a time where the child is forced to sleep, nap time. The child cannot even choose when to sleep anymore. Playtime, singing time. And that's why you have adults that grow up looking for people to give them orders. They cannot make up their minds about things anymore because they never got practice about deciding their way through play. Adults always looking for validation. Should I do this? Should I take this job? Should I quit this job? Should I marry this person? They're confused because decisions were always made for them from very early on. So that muscle, that mental muscle of making decisions becomes very hard. Play is very important. A lot of times people ask me, Tola, what books are you reading? I would like to read the books you are reading, you understand? I would like to see your library. What books are you reading at the moment? I would shock you. I don't spend that much time reading. I honestly don't. I spend a lot of time experiencing life. So I spend a lot of time just observing nature, observing people, listening to conversations, having conversations, sleeping. You understand? That's what I spend my time doing. I am not an intellectual. I'm just a curious person. And that's because very young, I was very playful. And I thank my parents for giving me the opportunity to play. I thank my parents for giving me the opportunity to play. I'll never forget a report card I stumbled on many years ago while we were doing some kind of house cleaning. And I saw this report. I think my mom saw it and she called me and she said, look at this report card. And it was a report card from my primary one or nursery two. I think it was nursery two. It wasn't primary, it was nursery two. And the teacher had written in my report card, Tola is too playful. Please pay more attention to him. He plays with sand too much. And I'll never forget those words. Tola is too playful. He plays with sand too much. And I had to think, that really shocked me. I was like, this is nursery two. And a teacher wrote this about me. That was their comment. That my parents should curb my playing at nursery two. You understand? Said I was too playful. I will never forget that statement in my report card. I thank God my parents never listened to that. I thank God that they never listened to that. You understand? And that's why I have this love-hate relationship with school. Because when you look at school, we need to be careful the schools we send our children to, because they are under the supervision and guidance of broken people. And broken people never create whole people. And you'll be shocked how many teachers are broken, traumatized, and they're there to teach your child to become a model human being when they cannot tell a model human being if you hit them on the nose with virtue. They don't know what it is. They don't know what it is to think on your own. They don't know what it is to be free. They don't know what it is to be creative. They are taught, our kids are taught by desperate people. Desperate, scared, people who don't know themselves, angry people. We need to be very careful about our choice of school. But then I won't seg from where I'm going. Play is very important. Play is very important. One thing play does is it helps us to not care about end results. What play really is doing something without a rigid end in mind. That's what play is. The freedom to experience and letting life take you through this course, this rabbit hole, like Alice in Wonderland, and not knowing where the hole leads to, and just being on this course of discovery and wonder and excitement and surprise. That's what play is. Not holding on to a rigid end or a rigid outcome. Work, on the other hand, is holding on to something, doing something, and hoping and being so fixated on what the outcome would be. The outcome has to be this. So when you're working on producing a spoon, it has to look like the spoon in the end. If it doesn't look like a spoon, at the end of it, you wasted your work hours. That's not play. Play is molding something and not knowing what you will get out at the end. And at the end, you look back and say, wow, that's interesting. I never knew I could do that. I never knew this material could do that. I never knew it could bend that way. I never knew it changed this color when it hadn't. I never knew. Play helps us to discover. It helps us not to be rigid. Play helps us to eliminate things that we are not interested in. The spirit of play is like going to a buffet. And when you go to a buffet, what you experience is a lot of food. You see a lot of food. You are faced with a lot of dishes, everything looking nice, smelling good. You see, the interesting thing about a buffet is when we approach the buffet table, the tendency is for us to load our plate at the first serving. When we go the first time to serve ourselves, you put everything in there because you don't know what it is. You just put it in there. Everything looks interesting. I want to try this and try this and try that. That's a lot of play. You're trying this and trying that. And then you go to the table and you eat and you kind of discover, I like this. I don't really like this. Oh, I don't like this at all. So when you go the second time, which a lot of people go, you realize that their plates, the serving is smaller, less variety, because you are sure about what you want and what you don't want. And then if you were to go a third time, you realize that you go for just maybe one or two things. And then you have a lot of clarity about the food you like and the food you don't like. That's what play is. Play is a sense of experience. It's experiencing something. Play is very important. Very important. We deny ourselves that gift of play. And I'll say this again. Any child that is denied the gift of playing will become a very confused adult. Very confused. Without any sense of self. I really believe that play is more important than prayer. Play is higher than prayer. I do believe so. I believe there's a hierarchy. At the very bottom is labor, toilsome work, where you eke your way through getting results in life. You eke it out. You eke out results in life. You scrape it. You bruise your fingers while working. This is what they call toilsome labor. That's the bottom of the food chain, which a lot of people do. toilsome labor. And then there is faith. That's faith in God. And, knowing and being aware that God can do all things and God can help us through life and give us strength and wisdom that we need on our way. So we can pray. That's a connection with God, a conscious connection with God, saying, God, help me with this thing. Help me because it's hard. I need your power to overtake my power. I need you to labor on my behalf. And sometimes we won't tell God to complement our labor. You understand? To bless our labor. So we are conscious of God and we commit our labor to God. So we are not laboring on our own. That's that's the faith type labor. So you're not laboring on your own. You put that work in God's hands, knowing that He can help you. That's good, but that's not the height. The height is play. And play, another word for play is rest. And what that means is there is no work at all. There is just a going through life with a sense of experience. Like you're walking through a garden and having fun. You're just going through life and just having fun. Not thinking of a rigid result and saying, God, help me to get this result. No, you're just like, I'm having fun because God has made so much available to me. And I'm going to enjoy everything God has made available. I'm going to taste a little bit of this and try that and see what that seems like. And I'm going to enjoy life. Knowing that God has gone ahead of me and I cannot get hurt. So I'm going to go through this amusement park of life on every ride, just having a great time. And at the end, I'm going to find out the ride I love the most that I'm going to commit myself to. That is play. It's also rest. It is almost like for this, I'm going to sound a bit controversial here. Being so trusting in God that you become unconscious of Him. So trusting that you almost become unconscious. God becomes a reflex thought, not a conscious thought. You understand? It becomes a reflex thought. So it's not, you don't have to pray. You are always with Him, just having dialogue. God becomes your thought, not your prayer. And that's when you reach the place of play. And I always tell people about this story about my wife and how I met my wife. You see, I talk about when I was in school trying to, graduate from school, and I felt a pressure to go into a relationship. So I went ahead and I did it the laborious way. I went to labor. And what the labor was about was going out, checking my dressing, you understand, grooming myself, trying to interact with more women, trying to be more social, you understand, trying to look out for women that were beautiful and had a character that I wanted, trying to strike up conversations, doing everything laboriously, not staying indoors too much, going out more, all those things that you kind of check when you are single and searching. And I did it and I had the results, after months. I met a young lady, you understand, and we built a relationship and we started talking and stuff like that. And, we got into the relationship and the relationship didn't last. It didn't last, you understand. I wasn't ready, she wasn't ready. For me, I almost wish, you understand, I could go back in time and not go into that relationship. But then, I'm appreciative because I can use it as a means of teaching today. But then, the emotions were not right. The emotions were not right. In fact, I came out of the relationship with my esteem battered. I lost more than I gained, even though I labored to gain it. And then I went through this phase, the next phase of trying to trust God. You understand? Active prayer, praying for a relationship. Pray, God will lead me. God will lead me. And then I found myself always questioning, God, is this the one? God, is she the one? God, is this the one? I was always asking because I was in that active faith, active prayer mode. Every time it became a prayer request. And then I realized I was confused. Because every lady I met, I was like, okay, we had a good conversation. Is that the one? And I read the Bible, it's God talking to me. I'm not sure I'm hearing you. It was really a time of internal tussle in my mind. Faith. I was praying actively, looking for a result. And then I got so tired because that was so draining. I wasn't sure who the one was. And then I got to this place of, God, I'm just going to enjoy my life. I'm tired of all this trying to search every time. Telling you, oh God, direct me to the right person. I don't want to make the prayer request anymore. I'm not praying about my partner anymore. I just want to enjoy life. Enjoy. So God brought this friend my way at that point, a guy, and he was a very outgoing person. And he would always come to my house and say, let's go out. I said, what am I doing? You go out. And we went for, we never went to questionable places. We went to church, events, and stuff like that. And, I just really enjoyed that period because I was just playing. Nothing to do, no strategy, no end in mind. I wasn't going to places to meet any girl. I was just going to enjoy the event. You understand? So I went from place to place. I remember we went for one program in church. I was just at home and he just said, tell her, what are you doing this evening? I said, no, nothing much. He said, they're having this youth program at church. You want to come? I said, no problem. I'm doing anything. And I went with him. Just eager to enjoy my day. And I say, on that day, I sat down in a particular place beside my wife. My wife today, she sat down right next to me. And that's how I met my wife. Not through prayer, not through labor, but through rest. Playing, jumping around with my friend from one program to the other, one event to the other. That's what we were doing. And in doing that, I found my wife. I found what I needed. Play. That's what play is about. Play higher than prayer. There's a part of the Bible where Jesus was on the ship, in a boat with his disciples, and a storm. We were met by a storm, a very great storm, and the disciples were scared because it was obviously a very troublesome, turbulent storm. And the waves were hitting the boats, and they were all scared. And for them to be scared, you must understand that a lot of them were fishermen. They had seen storms. So this one must have been the mother of storms for them to be scared. These guys were not people that were lily-livered by any means. No. They were fishermen. They were out at sea most of the time. So by no means, we should by no means undermine their machismo. You understand? No. But this one must have been a very violent storm. And interestingly, the Bible tells us Jesus was sleeping in the corner of the boat. And they woke him up. They woke him up. Say, Master, how can you be sleeping through this storm? We're about to die. And Jesus got up and calmed the storm. And he was very upset with them that they woke him up to pray about the storm. Now, when we read this Bible, when we read this particular part of the Bible, we are always focusing on Jesus praying about the storm. But we don't understand that Jesus was more upset about the fact that they pushed him to take the lower route of praying to calm the storm rather than sleeping through the storm. It is more powerful to sleep through the storm than to call on God to calm the storm. So you see, these three approaches to life played out on the boat. The disciples, when the storm came, they were laboring to get through the storm. And that took them nowhere. Labor always takes us nowhere. It just increases insecurity and fear. And then they woke Jesus up to speak to the storm and to call on God to calm the storm, which was a faith thing, a conscious calling on God. But Jesus had already chosen the better way, which was sleeping through the storm. Sleeping. And just allowing God to do his thing. Not to have woken up and just realized that he didn't even know that there was a storm in the first place. They just got to their destination. Jesus didn't want to be conscious of that storm. He wanted to sleep and rest and play through it. Be totally oblivious to it. So he was upset that they made him conscious of something that he was already trusting the Father to take care of. He just wanted to wake up and be at his destination. You see, that's the spirit of play. It's the spirit of, I don't even know how I got here. I just know I was having fun. I wasn't laboring either in toil or in prayer. I was just resting in God. We must learn to play. Don't be so result-oriented. Be experience-oriented, knowing that the result will fall in place. That is the spirit of play. Play is rest. Is the highest form of interaction with God. Nothing pleases God more than play. Nothing. That's why he says in the Bible, we must be like little children. I have little children. You know what? They don't even get up in the morning to consciously pray to God. We are the ones that tell them, have you done your prayer? Have you prayed? Have you prayed today? They don't get up. They just wake up anxious about what life has to offer them with some kind of audacity. We are the ones that teach them caution. You better be careful. The day can have you. The day can sneak up on you. It's good to pray, but there's a higher way of rest. Higher place of rest. And that's why he says we must imitate the children. The children enjoy everything God has to offer. They play through it. They try this today, try this tomorrow, try this, and they discover more about themselves through play. They see life as a buffet. And at the end of the day, the end of the buffet, they know which meal they love the most. We must learn to play. Remember, play means rest. Play means rest. Rest means not being so concerned or fixated on a rigid outcome. This is what I want. This is my spec. This is my vision board. This is the kind of car I want. This is the kind of height I want to be. This is the kind of body I want the person I want to have. You understand? So we pray about it and pray about it all day, or we labor and labor and labor towards it. God is just saying, enjoy the buffet. Because in the end, what you think looks the most appealing on the buffet table is not so appealing when you taste it. Sometimes it's that thing you thought, maybe I should just take this. Might be the thing you end up taking the most throughout the buffet. Open yourself up to. experiencing life. Play. I hope someone finds this helpful today. I hope it gives someone a sense of peace, a sense of peace that we can only have through resting and playing in God. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and you've been listening to my podcast, ProUp Masterclass.